So now this one, let's just attempt this final one. Open the file. You should have it somewhere. Now, I don't know where you stored your file from last time, the genomic dna.txt. Don't delete any of the files that we worked with. Otherwise, you might need to go and find it now. But I'm assuming it would have been either in the folder that you always use to do these exercises, or somewhere on your desktop. Or, but you open this, then you're going to strip it from any white space. So again, I'm not saying from where you need to strip it. I'm just saying that you need to strip it from all white space. So there's a particular strip that you use when you want to strip it from the front and the back. Then you're going to create a variable name that is called count80. And you're creating that variable name because it's intuitive for what you're about to do. You're going to count the number of A's and T's that are inside the genomic dna.txt file. You did this previously in the string exercise where you used the .count method, if you remember. So you're basically just going to combine. You're going to add up the A's and the T's and add it together. You store that into count80, and then you would print your answer to a file that you're going to create called count80.txt. So remember, you're going to now open the first file for reading, and the count80.txt, you're going to open that file for writing because you're writing something into it. And then lastly, just so that, sometimes you have a lot of things to print, and this is probably not the right way to do it, but just to get you into the kind of the principles of how you're going to script or code. Sometimes it may take a long time for the results to be printed to your file. So you might want to just walk away and come back to your console or to your IDE and know when it is done, instead of checking every time whether the code is still running. So then you could, for example, put results printed or done, or something that gets printed to your screen to show you that the script is done running and it printed everything to your file and you have no errors, for example. Again, there are errors that you can't account for with this, but we're just doing it step by step first. So after you print your results to count80.txt, you will then print to your screen. The results will print it to an output file. Okay, again, I'm just going to unveil the first part of it. As I said, you might decide to not use the with. I've opened both of it here, but you might have done something like this. I just opened them both at the start here, but like I said, you're going to have to be careful because sometimes you might not open your output file all the way at the start, especially when you start working with for loops and you're reading in multiple files and you need to print out to multiple different files. And you're dealing with lots of different functions which you haven't done yet, then it's not as simple as just opening your output files all at the start, because you don't, sometimes you want that information to be printed inside a loop or something, but it's too complicated to give examples of that now, but we will see some again later when we're dealing with for loops. I think, okay, I'm going to add the next part to here as well, at least the first part. Okay, so whether you use the with or the the normal way, you would have had this part over here. You either would have had it there, or you would have had this there. So it would have looked something like this. So you're then sitting here. You've opened the file and you've stripped it. So some of you would have obviously not opened this yet because this is a further down. So you might have opened it further down. That's also fine. Like I said, I'm just doing it here at the start now because I know I'm going to be working with that file. So it doesn't matter in this case whether it's before or after. Okay, so maybe in order to not cause confusion, let's pretend that you haven't done that part yet. So you should have had at least this. Okay, then you would have done this part, hopefully. Some of you might have not added this to the file yet, but some of you may have added it, those of you who have some experience. So some of you might just have this, or you might have, for example, counted A first and then counted T and then added them together. That's also fine. Like I said, it doesn't really matter as long as it's intuitive. Okay, so yeah, let's pretend that's not there. Some of you might have done this part already, or like I said, you might have done it separate, doesn't matter. But now you're sitting here, you've created a variable name, and you've counted the A's and the T's that are in there. With the show of yeses, how many can tell me, how many has gotten to at least, even if you haven't completed that line, how many have at least managed to get that far? Okay, so Victoria and Lindley have gotten to at least there. Let me just, can I just ask, the rest of you are very quiet. Is this very complicated for you? So that I can know if I need to include additional steps when we come back, and at what pace I need to move. Are the rest of you just quiet because you're into it and you're doing it, and you, or are some of you not attempting it because it's too hard? Is there anybody out there that's not trying? Okay, so the Ain, I'm reading your comment also. Yeah, so these are just things that you will notice along the way, and sometimes you still will make the error, but it will get easier because you will start to understand the message from the error message and be able to, course correct as you go. But you will always see that there are certain things that you might think that you got down, and if you were to hand this in as an answer without testing it first, without running your script, then you wouldn't realize that your script actually wouldn't have run until you tested, which is why I'm all for testing every line. If you have some form of debugger on it, use that. Otherwise, print statements throughout. I, for example, would print after this. I would, if you don't have a debugger, I would print there. I would print this again, just to make sure that I'm getting what I think I'm getting. So I normally print throughout, or at least after important lines. Okay, so then I'm assuming everybody would have opened the out file by then. And then printed the contents to the out file, which would have looked my laptop is freezing a bit here. So it either would have looked like this, or yours would have looked like this. Okay, so you either would have done it like that, with the width would have forced you to leave that indentation going all the way till the end. What is this? Is there anything missing here in this one? Line 6. The close is missing, yes. But I'm wondering now, I'm getting an error here. Thanks to Ain. So yeah, so you would have had to say in file.close and out file.close. I'm going to put this in its own. Okay. I'm still getting an issue. Out file. Not that. Okay, let me go from the start. This is nice. This is an error. Okay, so you get in file. I open that for reading. I open my out file for writing. Called it count.at.txt. I read the in file.strip. Count.at is equal to read in file.count. It is called read in file.count a plus no, this one is the issue here. The string should not be a problem. Oh, I think I have an extra bracket there. Okay, anyway, so yeah, so be careful about that. I did actually add a bracket, I think, and then I copied it. Yeah, okay. Okay, so there are times when the error message won't be as clear as you want it to be. But the nice thing is it said exactly where the problem was. And sometimes even that's wrong. Sometimes the problem lies way ahead. But yeah, so we can check whether this information is in there on our desktop. Count80.txt, and it says 249. And of course, that is a string. Yeah, I think that's about it for today. Yeah, the bracket messed up everything today. It is. It's fun to run into errors, as long as it doesn't take forever to sort it out, and as long as you have an idea. But yeah, there are times when it's a killer. It can take days. Okay, so that both of those worked, whichever one you prefer to do. So I'm going to end the session for now. If